So I made a video last night about this iMac. Um, this video will be showing you what I do to computers once they enter my house when it comes to testing, making sure they're okay, all that stuff. Halfway through the video, you'll listen to me make an attempt to sound a little bit more awake. Upon reviewing the footage today, I realized that I sounded dead tired uh, from the start. So no, I'm not high, I'm just tired. Next video will be better, if there is a next video, because I'm not sure if I will get a taste for making videos after this. But enjoy, hopefully it's useful to you, and give me some feedback in the comments so I know what to do different next time. Alright, people keep saying I should make videos, so here's my first attempt at one. I figured I'd show everybody what I do to a new computer once it enters my house, how I test it, what kind of criteria I have for it being okay or it not being okay, and see how this goes. Now, when it comes to production quality, don't expect any. This is an iPhone SE. The microphone I'm using is the one built into my headset. I have an overhead fan that's probably gonna make itself known in the audio. I have an AC from 1936 that is currently on, which you'll probably also hear in the video. The lighting is just the light of my phone. No fancy overhead lighting or LED panels, none of that stuff. So keep that in mind, and let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is just fire it up if it has a system installed and check the basic specs. This does not have a fully functional OS on it. This is in a pre-imaging state, just used for testing, so it's not going to show the full model name and all that, but it shows the important stuff. 4 gigahertz, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 4 gig graphics card. Storage should be 512. Yeah, I'll be upgrading this to a 1 terabyte. Of course, the display, Retina 27-inch, and 32 gigs of RAM. Just the basics. Just make sure everything is there. Does your Wi-Fi work? Does your Bluetooth work? Can you adjust the volume? Does the display dim okay? Basic stuff. After that, I really only use a few things. I have 3 flash drives. This is a flash drive I built myself. It has a base OS on it with a whole bunch of software, utilities to do all kinds of testing. This has hardware tests from Apple. They're called Apple hardware tests. You can find them online. And this has a whole bunch of different macOS versions on it to install it once all the testing is done. This is a separate solid state drive, USB 3 with memtest on it. It's a really brutal test for your RAM, your processor, and everything that connects to the system internally. If it passes this test, you can be pretty damn sure your Mac is okay. But we'll find out. We're going to start with my I don't even have a name for it, flash drive that I put together myself. That's, by the way, also something you want to do. Just if you have a flash drive or whatever kind of ports are on your Mac, make sure that you have devices that can connect to them. Then connect those devices and make sure they actually work. So in this case, USB flash drive. Make sure the volume is off because I'm doing this pretty late. Everybody is sleeping. We don't want to wake them up. go. So this shows the operating system currently on there, recovery partition, my flash drive. Select that and wait for it to load. And try to play with the autofocus in the meantime, which is a complete fail. There we go. Now, unless the system is really nasty, I don't even clean it until the very, very end. 9 out of 10 times I have to open up a system anyway, because Apple's hardware is currently designed so that you cannot easily clean it externally. I mean, you can wipe it down, you can, use some compressed air to blow out the fan holes and all that, intake, exhaust, but if you really want to clean a system, you have to take it apart, and Apple doesn't make it easy, especially with iMacs. So I save all that for last. Here we go. Alright, now on this flash drive is running High Sierra, so it should properly report on the hardware specs and the model name. There we go. Come on, focus. iMac Retina 5K 27-inch late 2014. Now this flash drive was built on my Mac Pro, so the picture is not gonna match up, but at least the model name is shown properly. Now, the first thing I like to do, I start off with TechTool Pro. It basically gives me everything I need. I configure it to do a quick test on the memory, check the VRAM, sensors, fans, and network interfaces. I don't really care about volume structures, partition map, or a surface scan, because I'm going to be replacing this flash storage anyway. So let's run the check. And see what happens. Okay, this test is just about to wrap up. It's putting a good strain on the RAM and all the processing cores. So far it's doing good. While I was waiting for this test to finish, I played back the last recording. I noticed a lot of scraping noises on my microphone, so I adjusted it a little. Hopefully it won't be rubbing up against my shirt or my beard. Let's hope for the best. But if this works out, I might get an external microphone. I don't know, a little shotgun mic. So to improve the audio a little. Alright, I don't see any uneven lighting, no stuck pixels. It's looking pretty good. I mean, the screen is very dirty. I haven't cleaned this yet at all. Hello. I don't know if you could see me, but I waved at you. Alright. The smart status on the SSD passed. So at least I'll have a good 500 gigabytes spare. And the fan passed. The sensors is most important to me. It'll tell me if anything is running too hot or if something is not getting the amount of power that it should. That's not something I can analyze on the fly. I have to take the flash drive, put it in my Mac Pro, pull up the test results, and compare notes that I have with all the right sensor readings on it. Because my memory is decent, but it's not that good. Alright, as we see here, TechTool Pro passed all its tests. Now, apart from the official Apple hardware tests that you basically can only get when you bring your Mac to Apple, TechTool Pro is my second favorite hardware test. So, that passed. Let's see what else we have. Take you to a quick tour of my applications folder here. So, we have AJA System Test Lite. I use that to test performance of storage. Same for Blackmagic disk speed test. Cinebench, it's not that reliable when it comes to the score it spits out, because pretty much all the scores are the same no matter what system you run it on. I use it mostly to really heat up a processor or a graphics card quickly and see how it reacts. Battery testing for laptops, some troubleshooting utilities, Geekbench, because, why not? Heaven is a pretty intense graphics benchmarking test, as is Luxmark. They will really put a number on your system. Let's see, SMC fan control, temperature gauge pro. I use those to play with the fans, see if they're reacting properly, if all the temperature sensors are reading out. And Prime 95 is the one I'm currently after. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what it does. It's looking for a prime number, and it uses a lot of resources in doing so. I'm using it for the torture test. This will take all your processor cores and all your memory and basically stress it to the max. You have a few tests to pick from. I always pick the blend test. It uses a lot of RAM and really puts strain on your processor. And before I run this, I always open up Activity Monitor. Open up Activity Monitor. This might be the end for my dear flash drive. Yeah, that's taking way too long. Alright. And once that's up and running, I put up my CPU usage. I just want to see, what it's doing in the background. When I start the torture test, all cores should be maxed out, pretty much. So let's have a look. Oh, no, wait. I also pull up where are you? Oh, wrong hard drive. Yeah, this drive's not in great shape. I also pull up Temperature Gauge Pro, although I don't think I've put my license information in yet. So yeah, we might be limited with the amount of information it shows. Yeah. have to put my license in, but the temperature doesn't matter much because it's showing me up top here. What I'm interested in is the fan. How hot does it have to get for the fan to ramp up? And if it's not to my liking, I will just have to let's see, CPU core 2, second temperature is, let's see, memory module 3 is at the top, I believe, and show the main fan RPM. Actually, you know what, I want to do this right. Let me pause this video, put in my license, and I'll be right back. Plan B. My license code for Temperature Gauge Pro is longer than I currently want to type. So I'm going to use an alternate utility. It's called Max Fan Control. And it's not my preferred utility when it comes to this stuff, because Temperature Gauge Pro has a lot more granular control. But just for checking out the temperatures and the fan speed, this will do nicely. Alright, let me put this all in one frame. Alright, so idling at about, let's say 45 Celsius. The memory is keeping nice and cool. Graphics card, we're barely using it. So let's start this torture test and see if it freaks out. There we go. Processor is nice and busy. And we're already at 77, 80. And the fan is still at idle speed. With those kinds of temperatures, I'm not comfortable with the fan basically being off. So I would adjust these rules to make sure that when it reaches 90 degrees, it should be at the very least halfway up. It's not really a fault or a hardware flaw with this iMac. This is Apple's choice. They prefer, oh, the fan is finally spinning up because it's about to cook itself at almost 100 degrees Celsius. A computer being quiet is more important to Apple than a computer lasting a long time. So whether it's an iMac or a MacBook Pro, you're not going to hear the fan spin up unless they absolutely have to. So the fan is about 80% right now. Coming up in 7200 RPM, which is in my opinion way too low for a single fan design that's supposed to cool everything in this thing. But it's what we got to work with. Now once you reach 100 degrees Celsius, at least on this model, you will experience thermal throttling. I don't even need to run Intel's gadget to know that. So as with every other system that I own or that comes across my desk, I will be opening this up to put fresh thermal paste on, both the processor and the graphics card. Now it's not even done with the first test yet. And it's already throttling because it's running way too hot. Not according to Apple standards, but to my standards. And the fan is still not maxing out. I want a constant RPM value of maximum. Not that it's going to help, but why not? Now, I'm going to open this up anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but if you don't plan on opening your computer, you want to just check the airflow by the exhaust, whatever computer you have. And very important, you want to take a whiff of this. Does it smell like burning dust? Does it smell like melting electronics? Or, is it just hot air? This smells pretty horrible, so there's a lot of dust in there that is currently, well, not burning up, but getting pretty hot. So this definitely needs a good cleaning. Now, I let this test run for several hours, typically, but I don't have the patience for that because I'm recording a video. So I'm going to shut this down, shut the recording down, let the test run for about another half hour, at which point it will be 1 a.m. And then we're going to continue on to the next test. And we are back. The test has been running for about half an hour. Temperatures held steady under 100 degrees, which is not something I could say for the iMac. This is replacing, which is even just checking your mail, it's at 103. So I'm pretty happy with this result. I think I've seen enough. So I will be stopping this test. Closing all this out. Put the fan back on automatic speed. And move on to the next test. Wrong hard drive again. Alright. Now I want to give the graphics card a good workout. For that I use Luxmark. You can test both the processor and the graphics card, but I just worked on the processor enough to be pretty confident it works. So we go up to the mode menu, stress test, and put it on GPU. Oh, before I do, since High Sierra, if you go to Activity Monitor, the View menu, the Window menu, you can pull up GPU history. Whoa, not what I intended to do. There we go. It doesn't really serve, well, it does serve a purpose. You can see if it throttles. You will see these bars go down if it gets too hot, and it has to cool off a little. But mostly it's just fun to look at. So we're going up to mode. Pause it. You should see this react right away. Now the graphics card is pretty much idle. We're going up to mode, stress test, GPU, and then we're going to let Luxmark do its thing. And this is a good workout. There's another utility called Furmark. Basically the same thing, it just looks different. I'm happy with the results that Luxmark provide. So again, I'll be running this for about half an hour, keeping an eye on the temperatures. And it's already maxed out at 100 degrees. And the fan is just starting to climb now. So, of course, that is way too slow. This should have kicked in right away. So, constant value. Crank it up. It's not going to do a lot of good for the temperature, but hopefully it'll stay under 100 degrees. Now the graphics card can handle a little bit more than 100, but it's way past my comfort level. So hopefully it'll stick to 99, maybe 100. We'll see how it goes. So I'll let this run for about 20 minutes. I've had systems where the display started showing weird garble lines or the computer simply shut down. Of course that's an indication something ain't right. If it stays on, there's no garble, and it keeps the temperatures steady at 100 in this case, I'll be happy after 15-20 minutes. And move on to the next test. It's been about 10 minutes, and instead of letting this run longer, I'm going to do another graphics test. The temperature rose up a little, 103. Same as the old computer. The only difference is the old computer, by the time it hit 103, performance was halfway down. This one is obviously able to keep up even at those temperatures, so I'm not too worried about it as of yet. Now I'm going to stop this test. Whoop. And open up Heaven. Now, Heaven is basically a game that renders on the fly. A bunch of different scenes render on the fly, and that gives your graphics card one hell of a workout. Now I'm setting the quality to ultra. Just make it sweat a little. Resolution, let the system handle it, and run. Okay, I'm not going to be able to keep an eye on the temperatures because this is a full screen app. Now it's pretty jittery because the quality is actually much higher than what this card can comfortably take. We'll do the benchmark, that'll be good enough. Alright, and now it is benchmarking. It shows you statistics in the bottom of the screen, probably important information for gamers, but this system will not be used for games at all, so I don't really care if it's slow. I put it on the highest setting, or a much higher setting than it should be able to handle, just to stress test it. I don't really care if it performs poorly when it comes to frame rate, things like that. It's not doing bad though. I've seen worse. So I will let this cycle through all the renders, let it finish the benchmark, and move on to the next test. And the benchmark is done. A whopping 17.5 frames per second. Any serious gamer would laugh at that score. But I was able to switch away from the background. The GPU held up nicely. Same temperature as before. So that is good enough for me. Now typically I run these tests a little longer, but you know, making a video, it's past 1 a.m. I'm tired. You can probably tell from the sound of my voice that I'm starting to wind down a little. So is there any other test I would like to run at this point? Let's see. Cinebench. I'm kind of falling out of love with Cinebench. It's really not that great anymore. But you know, why not? Let's run it. See what happens. So this will put some strain on the processor. Not too much. It'll still dip down a lot. But if anything, it's fun to see all those little squares dancing around. You may have noticed also that my microphone is no longer rubbing up against my beard and my shirt and everything else. That's because I taped the microphone to the side of my glasses to keep it from rubbing up against stuff. I haven't gone back to check any recordings at this point, but hopefully it's working, because that's the best I can do. And we have a CPU score of a completely meaningless 788, and I'm not even going to do the graphics card test. I'm happy with that. I would typically run a quick speed test on the internal storage, just to see if it's performing as it should, but like I mentioned, I'm gonna swap this out for a bigger solid state drive, so I'm not too worried about it. Same with Geekbench, Valley, which is not a graphics card test. I'm pretty happy with this, so let's shut all this down, put the fan back where it thinks it should be. And the idle temperatures are actually much better than the old iMac. I'm comfortable with temperatures of around 50. Alright, let's quit this out. Quit out fan control. And let's see, yep, let's do mem test. Now I have to hook this up, and it's just going to be easier with two hands, so be right back. With that drive hooked up, let's restart the computer. There we go. Alright. So now we're skipping the flash drive and we're going straight to the external memtest 68. Now there's no pretty interface. This is mostly text-based, but it is the best memory processor, Northbridge, etc. test you can get your hands on. It is free. This is the paid version because I wanted more options, but it is amazing. I have seen computers crash and almost literally burn running this test, so run it at your own risk. Will you focus? Come on. Alright, let's jump into settings real quick. Nope, not the settings. What was it? Oh, CPU selection. It should be able to select all CPUs. There we go. Test selection should be all of them. Running 4 passes. The most brutal test in this entire suite is the hammer test. The name, it's as mean as it sounds. I've seen systems crash only to never come back after running this test, especially the hammer test. If your system passes memtest 68, all tests, you can take that to the bank. Of course, it doesn't guarantee that your speakers are fine, your screen is fine, but when it comes to the memory, the processor, the North bridge that ties it all together, which is integrated in pretty much all of the modern systems. North bridge is integrated into the CPU. If it passes this test, you're fine. You're absolutely fine, and you should be able to use this computer for a while. Anyway, let's start the test. Now, as I mentioned, it is absolutely not pretty, but it shows you everything you need to know. Which test is it running? What's the speed? How many passes? How many errors? And it is extremely specific. If it fails any test for any reason, it'll mention exactly which block or which address failed. And you might be able to tie that address back to a specific RAM module on a system like this, which is what I found out with the previous computer, that not only was one of the RAM modules bad, one of the sockets was actually in bad shape. Whatever I put in there, it just kept spitting out errors. So this is a great test. It will, it doesn't get better than this. So I let this run. I set it up for 4 loops. That can take a few hours, depending on how much RAM you got. I got 32 gigabytes in here, so that could probably run all night. I might stop it after one test, or after one loop. Because if there are any issues or any errors to be found, you don't need 5, 6, or 10 loops to figure it out. It'll spit it out right away. So I'm going to let this run for one loop. Hopefully I won't fall asleep, and I'll be back to finish this video. I will do my best to sound a little bit more awake though. Alright, we are back. I hope I sound a little bit more awake right now. I'm not, I'm faking it, but hopefully it sounds better. And here we are. I think there's a total of 14 tests. We are 10 tests in. The RAM is running pretty toasty, and it is spitting out errors. So we're not in great shape. Definitely something I have to dig into. Let's see what it's doing. Yeah, it's still running the test. Not good. That means one of the modules has an issue, and I'm gonna have to take some modules out, restart the test, see if it spits out any more errors, put a different module in, test again. This can easily take up a whole afternoon or longer, so I'm not gonna do that right now, but we have something to focus on. So let me get out of this test. It won't even let me. I think it stalled. I've never seen it not respond to a quit command before. That's interesting. Anyway, I don't need to save the log because I have it right here in the video for me to pull back later. So, final step is to shut it down, unplug all the stuff currently in there. So here's the test, mem test 86, by the way. I was reading off my label where I wrote it wrong. It's not mem test 68, it's 86. And now we're going for the OS installer, because eventually I do need to have an OS on here to restore the backup. This, let's see if I can find a USB slot there. Come on. Ah, what a fail. Come on, you bitch. There we go. This 500 gig SSD is going in another machine, so it might as well have an OS on it. Did I start it, or did I fry the memory? There we go. So yeah, this computer is for, actually it's not for me. I am clearly a Mac Pro kind of guy. I'm not too fond of iMacs, but my wife is, and this is her system. Actually, I am not going to use my USB installer, because it is coming up on 3 a.m. I'm tired. So, one sec. I decided to take another route and see if my NetRestore server is working, because it will be infinitely faster than installing from a flash drive. Now, I have been experimenting with the server a lot lately, so it might not work, but it's worth a shot. Well, that's somewhat promising. It should default to a High Sierra image. Here we go. Select the language. Let's stick with what we know. Before we select the target disk, we're going to wipe it. Erase. Sure. Do your thing. Alright. Now we can restore. Now, a typical install from an external drive, whether it being USB, Firewire, or something else, is about 10 to 15 minutes. This is already 25% done. So definitely a time saver. If you have a spare Mac Mini or even a MacBook, something with an Ethernet port laying around, you might want to experiment with this. And I won't speed this up so you can see real time how quick this process is. %, 95, and done. Verifying, putting a recovery partition in place, and we are good to go. And the Mac is ready. It'll automatically restart. And that was what, 4 minutes? Not even? Not bad. There we go. Alright, and when the time comes, this solid state drive will be in another Mac, and at that time I will want to transfer information. So I'm going to leave this where it's at right now and shut it down. So that is my process. A bunch of hardware tests. Typically 1 or 2 tests that test the same component, the hardware component, but in a different way. So for example, you could see that the Prime 95, which also heavily tests the RAM, passed all the tests. So I was 99% certain that the RAM was good. However, Memtest 86 clearly showed that the RAM is not okay. At least not all of it. So it is important to have 2 tests for the same hardware component. Apart from that, just test all the ports, test the volume, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. Another test like TechTool Pro goes after your sensors and does a quick test of the screen with all the different colors to see if there's dead pixels and stuff like that. You're pretty well covered. Apple's own hardware test, I'll show you that real quick. Start up the computer, hold down the letter D. There we go. Select the language, and it'll start checking your Mac automatically. It does a basic check of the RAM, not all of it because it takes too long, and of course this is one of those typical at home or Genius Bar tests that they want you to be done quick. So it's not going to test all of it. It tests random address spaces on the RAM, a quick smart check of your storage, whether it's a hard drive or a solid state drive. It checks all your sensors. If you have a laptop, it also checks your battery. All the essentials are tested. If there's an issue, it'll spit out an error code, which you used to be able to look up online on Apple's website, and you could see exactly what was wrong. However, the error codes have become pretty cryptic and or are not even mentioned on Apple's website. So you would still have to end up going to the Genius Bar. But it's a pretty decent test nonetheless. But if you really want to make sure that your system is reliable, ready for anything, you have to run your own tests. Now, this is not my iMac. This is my wife's, and she needs this for work. So it has to be reliable. She cannot have this thing crash when she's in the middle of a project and lose hours of work, for example. So any Mac that comes into my house, whether it's a laptop, a desktop, old or fairly recent, is tested in a similar fashion. just to make sure that it's up for anything we throw at it. Now I'm gonna let this finish and then wrap it up. Alright, it tests the fan as well. Here we go. No issues found. Well, I know you're lying, but it is a basic test. This in no way stacks up to MemTest 86. MemTest is the best for a reason, and this is a quick test. But it is a good indication nonetheless. If this shows you something is wrong, something is definitely wrong and needs to be investigated. So I hope this was useful in any way. Let me shut this down real quick. I hope this was useful in any way. I'm gonna edit this video. Hello, Meatball. That's my cat. I'm surprised he didn't jump on the desk 20 times before while recording. I'm gonna edit this, see if I feel like uploading it in the morning. If I do, and you want more videos from me in the future about Apple related stuff and repair and testing and whatever else I could think of, let me know in the comments, and hope you enjoyed it. Say bye, Meatball. That'll do. See you, people.